Right now, 240 million kilometers from Earth, there is a planet so bizarre, so beautiful, and so terrifying that every scientist who has ever studied it has walked away with more questions than answers. Its rings stretch further than the distance from Earth to the Moon. It has a storm that has been raging for decades, in the shape of a perfect hexagon, larger than our entire planet. And right now, as you watch this video, it is slowly dying. This is Saturn, and in the next 15 minutes, I am going to show you things about this planet that will completely change how you see our solar system forever. Stay until the very end, because the last fact about Saturn is the most beautiful and heartbreaking thing I've ever learned about space. Let's go. Let's start with the basics, because even the basics about Saturn are mind-blowing. Saturn is the 6th planet from our Sun. It takes 29 Earth years to complete one orbit, meaning if you were born on Saturn today, you would need to live to nearly 30 Earth years old just to celebrate your first birthday. But here is where Saturn gets immediately strange. A day on Saturn, one full rotation, takes only 10 hours and 33 minutes. So Saturn has the shortest day of any planet, but one of the longest years. Now let's talk about size. Saturn is so large that 764 Earths could fit inside it simultaneously. 764. If Earth was the size of a grape, Saturn would be the size of a basketball. But despite being that enormous, Saturn is actually the least dense planet in our solar system. In fact, Saturn is so light that if you could find a bathtub large enough to hold it, Saturn would float. The entire planet, all 764 Earth volumes of it, would bob on the surface of water like a rubber duck. And here is perhaps the most terrifying basic fact about Saturn. It has no solid surface. None. If you somehow traveled to Saturn and tried to land, you would just fall and fall and fall, deeper and deeper into swirling clouds of hydrogen and helium as the pressure and temperature around you increased until you were crushed completely. There is no ground on Saturn, just an endless gas giant swallowing everything that enters it forever. Now let's talk about what makes Saturn the most recognizable planet in our solar system. Those iconic rings. Saturn's ring system stretches 282,000 kilometers from one side to the other. To put that in perspective, the distance from Earth to the Moon is 384,000 kilometers. Saturn's rings are almost as wide as the distance between our planet and our Moon. That is incomprehensible. But here is what makes the rings even more mind-blowing. Despite being 282,000 kilometers wide, the rings are in most places only 10 to 100 meters thick. 10 meters. If you shrunk Saturn's rings down to the size of a football field, they would be thinner than a single sheet of paper. The thinnest, widest structure in our entire solar system, made entirely of ice and rock, ranging from particles smaller than a grain of sand to chunks as large as a 3-story building. And these rings are not silent. NASA's Cassini spacecraft actually recorded the sound of Saturn's rings, a haunting collection of whistles and hums, created by charged particles interacting with Saturn's magnetic field. The rings of Saturn literally sing. But here's the fact that stopped me completely when I first read it. Those beautiful, iconic rings that make Saturn so recognizable are disappearing. Right now, every single second, 10,000 kilograms of ring material is being pulled by Saturn's gravity and raining down into the planet. 10,000 kilograms every second. And scientists have calculated that at this rate, Saturn's rings will be completely gone in just 100 million years. That sounds like a long time. But consider this. The rings are already significantly smaller than they were when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. We will come back to this at the end of the video, because this fact becomes even more heartbreaking than you can imagine right now. Saturn has 146 confirmed moons, 146, more than any other planet in our solar system. And several of these moons are so bizarre and fascinating that they deserve their own documentary entirely. Let's start with Titan, Saturn's largest moon, and arguably the most interesting world in our entire solar system after Earth itself. Titan is larger than the planet Mercury. It has a thick orange atmosphere, actually thicker than Earth's, made of nitrogen and methane. And on Titan's surface, there are rivers, there are lakes, there are seas, not of water, but of liquid methane and ethane. Titan has a complete liquid cycle, just like Earth's water cycle. But instead of water falling as rain, liquid methane rains from the orange sky, flows into rivers, and collects in vast methane seas. And here is the most incredible fact about Titan. Because of its thick atmosphere and low gravity, if humans ever stood on Titan, we could strap on a pair of wings and actually fly, with our own muscle power, human-powered flight, on the moon of Saturn. Now let's talk about Saturn's most exciting moon, Enceladus. Enceladus is small, only 500 kilometers wide, but it is making scientists around the world lose sleep with excitement. Because beneath its icy surface, Enceladus has a global underground ocean of liquid water, and from its south pole, Enceladus shoots enormous geysers of water vapor and ice particles, 200 kilometers up into space, creating one of Saturn's outer rings entirely from its own oceans. And in that water, scientists have detected organic molecules, the same building blocks that created life on Earth. Enceladus has liquid water. Enceladus has organic molecules. Enceladus has heat from hydrothermal vents on its ocean floor, the exact same conditions where life first appeared on Earth 3.8 billion years ago. If there is life anywhere else in our solar system right now, the smartest minds on Earth believe it is swimming in the underground oceans of Enceladus. And finally, I cannot talk about Saturn's moons without mentioning Mimas. Mimas is one of Saturn's smaller moons, and it looks exactly like the Death Star from Star Wars. A giant impact crater on one side, creating an uncanny resemblance to science fiction's most iconic space station. George Lucas created the Death Star in 1977, but Mimas was only photographed closely for the first time in 1980, 3 years after Star Wars. The universe was ahead of Hollywood the whole time. Now let's get into the things about Saturn that scientists genuinely cannot explain, because Saturn is full of them. Mystery number 1, the hexagon. At Saturn's North Pole, there is a storm, but not just any storm, a perfectly shaped hexagonal storm, where each side of the hexagon is longer than the diameter of planet Earth. 6 perfectly straight sides, rotating steadily, at exactly 320 kilometers per hour. For as long as we have been able to observe it, we have never seen anything like this anywhere else in the universe. On Earth, storms form circles. On Saturn, the storm formed a hexagon. And despite decades of research, scientists still cannot fully explain why Saturn's storm chose that shape. Some theories suggest it is caused by jet streams interacting at specific frequencies, but nobody knows for certain. Saturn drew a perfect hexagon larger than Earth, and never told us why. Mystery number 2, Saturn's extra energy. Saturn emits significantly more energy than it receives from the Sun. Our Sun heats Saturn from 1.4 billion kilometers away, but Saturn is releasing more heat than that, from somewhere inside itself. We know Jupiter does this too, likely from gravitational compression causing its core to generate heat. But Saturn releases far more extra energy than Jupiter does, and scientists are still debating exactly why. Saturn is generating its own mysterious internal energy, and we do not fully understand where it comes from. Mystery number 3, the young rings. Here is something that completely baffled scientists when they figured it out. Saturn's rings look ancient. They look like they have always been there. But calculations based on Cassini's data suggest Saturn's rings are only 400 million years old. 400 million years sounds old, but Saturn itself is 4.5 billion years old. That means for 4.1 billion years, Saturn had no rings at all. The rings only appeared 400 million years ago, when dinosaurs were already walking on Earth. So where did the rings come from so recently? The leading theory suggests a moon or comet got too close to Saturn, was torn apart by gravity, and the debris spread out into the ring system we see today. But nobody knows for certain. Saturn got its rings recently and is losing them quickly, and we just happen to be born at the exact moment in history when they exist. Think about that. To truly understand Saturn, we need to talk about the most important spacecraft ever sent to the outer solar system, NASA's Cassini. Cassini launched in October 1997, and after a 7-year journey of 3.5 billion kilometers, it arrived at Saturn in 2004. For the next 13 years, Cassini orbited Saturn 294 times. It flew through the ring gaps. It discovered the geysers of Enceladus. It mapped Titan's methane seas. It photographed the hexagon storm. It sent back 453,048 images. It made 635 gigabytes of scientific data, revolutionizing our understanding of Saturn completely. And then in 2017, NASA made a decision. Cassini was running out of fuel. They could have let it drift into space or crash randomly somewhere. But instead, NASA chose to fly Cassini deliberately into Saturn itself, not because it was cheaper, but because they were afraid that a drifting Cassini, contaminated with Earth bacteria, might one day crash into Enceladus and contaminate that pristine underground ocean where alien life might be living, with organisms from Earth. So to protect potential alien life in Enceladus's oceans, NASA sacrificed Cassini. On September 15, 2017, Cassini sent its final signal back to Earth, then plunged into Saturn's atmosphere at 113,000 kilometers per hour and burned up completely. It took 83 minutes for that final signal to travel from Saturn to Earth. When mission controllers received it, many of them cried. Cassini is now part of Saturn, the spacecraft that taught us more about that planet than anything in human history, is now dissolved into the clouds of the world it devoted its existence to. I find that quietly beautiful. So could humans ever visit Saturn? The honest answer is, not Saturn itself. But Titan is a different story entirely. Let's look at the challenges first. Saturn is on average 1.4 billion kilometers from Earth. With current technology, a spacecraft takes between 3 and 7 years to get there. That means a return trip would take up to 14 years. The longest anyone has ever spent continuously in space is 437 days, just over a year. 14 years is 10 times that. The physical and psychological challenges would be immense. Cosmic radiation, muscle and bone deterioration, complete isolation. And when you arrived, you couldn't land on Saturn. With winds reaching 1,800 kilometers per hour, temperatures of minus 178 degrees, and crushing atmospheric pressure, Saturn itself would kill you almost instantly. But Titan changes everything. Titan has a thick atmosphere that protects from radiation. Titan's gravity is low enough to make movement easy. Titan has abundant organic chemistry on its surface. And here's the most exciting development. NASA has already approved a mission called Dragonfly, a rotorcraft drone, that will fly through Titan's atmosphere and explore its surface, launching in 2028, arriving at Titan in 2034. Dragonfly will search for signs of life and assess whether Titan could support human habitation. The first step toward a human presence on Saturn's moon has already begun. And if Dragonfly finds what scientists hope it might, the first human colony beyond Mars could one day look up at an orange sky and see the rings of Saturn hanging above them, getting thinner every year, but still, for now, breathtakingly beautiful. I promised at the beginning of this video that the final fact about Saturn would be the most beautiful and heartbreaking thing I have ever learned about space. Here it is. Saturn's rings have existed for 400 million years. In 100 million more years, they will be completely gone. But here's the part that stopped me completely. For 4.1 billion years, Saturn had no rings, just a plain gas giant, floating silently in space. Then 400 million years ago, something happened, and the most beautiful structure in our solar system appeared. Rings that stretch further than the distance to our moon. Rings made of billions of pieces of ice, each one catching sunlight and sparkling in the darkness. Rings so beautiful that when Galileo first saw them through his telescope in 1610, he thought Saturn had ears. Those rings have been there, silently beautiful, through every moment of human history. They were there when the pyramids were built. They were there when Shakespeare wrote his plays. They were there when we first walked on the moon. And they are there right now, as you watch this video. But in 100 million years, they will be gone forever. The universe will never see them again. And here's the thought that truly gets me. Out of the 13.8 billion year history of the universe, out of the 4.5 billion year history of Saturn itself, we, you and I, happen to be alive during the exact 500 million year window when Saturn has rings. We didn't have to be. We could have been born in a universe where Saturn was already ringless, just another plain planet among billions. But we weren't. We are the lucky ones. We get to see Saturn in its full glory before it changes forever. So next time you see a picture of Saturn, really look at those rings, because you are one of the lucky beings in the universe's entire history who gets to see them at all. Saturn has been out there for 4.5 billion years, silently orbiting our sun, watching civilizations rise and fall on the pale blue dot nearby, watching us send a spacecraft to explore it, watching us fall in love with its rings, and now watching us realize those rings are slowly fading away. Of all the planets in our solar system, Saturn is the one that feels most like a reminder that nothing in the universe lasts forever. Not rings, not planets, not stars, but right now, in this moment, Saturn is there, beautiful beyond imagination, mysterious beyond explanation, and absolutely worth every second you spend looking up at it. If this video made you see Saturn differently, subscribe to Space and Universe Secrets right now. We reveal space secrets like this every single week, and share this video with someone who needs to know how lucky we are to be alive right now. Tell me in the comments, what was the fact about Saturn that shocked you most? Drop it below. I read and reply to every single one.